Module 3, Grading and Feedback, Designing Assignments with Assessment for Learning in Mind. For this module, we will focus on formative and summative assessment, creating strategies for transparency, integrating effective feedback strategies, and making adjustments to grading and feedback strategies to improve learning. Effective grading and feedback matter. Effective grading and feedback promote learning and improvement, boost motivation and engagement, promotes student self-reflection, and fosters a growth mindset. There are many conversations we might have about assessment and grading of student work in the classroom. For this module, we'll focus on a few common strategies supported by the Universal Design for Learning, or UDL framework, and that promote student learning. Assignments can be used for both formative and summative assessment. As formative assessments, assignments can support the scaffolding of student learning, allowing students to practice new skills so they are able to apply them in more complex projects. Instructors can provide timely feedback to support skill building and correct errors. Summative assessment evaluates students' comprehension or mastery of material. These are the tests, quizzes, presentations, or performance tasks we tend to think about when we think of assessments. As summative assessments, assignments can help instructors evaluate student achievement of learning outcomes. One example of formative assessment that many faculty use are called classroom assessment techniques, or CATs for short. Classroom assessment techniques, or CATs, are also called student engagement techniques and are brief, low-stakes activities to collect information about course-related knowledge and skills, student attitudes, values, and self-awareness, reactions to teaching methods. CATs can inform your teaching by providing just-in-time, day-to-day feedback that can be used immediately so that you don't have to wait for those final exams or projects to know how students are doing. CATs can inform your teaching by providing useful information about what students have learned, and they can allow you to address student misconceptions or lack of understanding. How do CATs support learning in the classroom? CATs provide students with an opportunity to reflect at the same time they provide feedback to the instructor. 4 popular CATs. CATs check for understanding. Clickers or polling, often used in large enrollment classes, are brief, low-stakes quizzes to check for understanding. CATs help students monitor their learning and improve performance. The muddiest point is a short writing activity for the student to reflect and identify what was unclear or confusing. CATs provide closure to the class session and prepare students for what comes next. In the minute paper, students take 1 minute to reflect on one point from the course session. For example, describe the most meaningful thing you've learned. CATs help students create connections between prior knowledge and new information. Top 5 ask the students to identify the most important takeaways from the lesson or material. Make sure that the strategies you choose align with your learning outcomes and relate in a meaningful way to your expectations for learning. Provide a mix of activities to engage students with different preferences and ways of learning. Finally, use the feedback you receive to address any issues raised by students. Summative assessment, or assessment of learning, evaluates students' comprehension or mastery of material presented in any unit, activity, or course. Simply put, it sums up what a student has learned in a given period on a given topic or series of topics. These are the tests, quizzes, presentations, or performance tasks we tend to think about first when we think of assessments. Summative assessments are familiar to students and instructors. They provide a standardized way to determine what extent students are meeting learning outcomes and where they might need additional support. These assessments also provide important data for instructors, students, departments, and other stakeholders when looking at student success and/or evaluating our instructional effectiveness. Good practices for summative assessment include the following. Design clear assessment criteria. Develop detailed rubrics that specify what constitutes different performance levels. Students should understand from the outset how their work will be evaluated and what achievement looks like. Align your summative assessments with your learning outcomes. Ensure that your assignments directly assess the specific skills and knowledge you've outlined in your course outcomes. Scaffold throughout the course. Structure your assignments to build complexity progressively. Early assignments should prepare students for more challenging final projects, creating a logical sequence that supports learning. Provide authentic context. Design assignments that connect to students' varied interests and backgrounds. Offer choice in topics when possible, allowing students to explore content through their own lens while meeting the same learning objectives. Create assignments with real-world relevance that students can relate to in their personal lives or professional goals. Consider timing and weighting. Distribute assignment due dates strategically throughout the semester to avoid bottlenecks, whether within your course or with other courses they might be taking. Weight assignments appropriately based on their complexity and the learning they represent. That is, small, low-stakes assignments should be just that, low stakes, low points, whereas the bigger projects or accumulation of assignments can be weighted more heavily in your course. Allow for revision when appropriate. For major assignments, build in opportunities for feedback and revision. This can enhance student learning and reduce their own anxiety while still providing summative evaluation of the final products. Where formative meets summative assessment, scaffolding for major assignments. Scaffolding is not just what we put up when we're trying to clean windows on a large building. Scaffolding can also be used to learn. Scaffolding is the process of breaking down large tasks or concepts and building smaller steps to help students gain competence and accomplish more complex tasks. Instructors give instructional supports early and gradually remove those supports as students develop proficiency. Large assignments can be broken down into components that build on each other, even repeating skills for practice. Small, simple, and low-stakes assignments can build skills to be able to accomplish something more complex. As a student, you might wonder how you will reach a large project goal. It can feel overwhelming and maybe totally inconceivable. As an instructor, you might assign students to read a book chapter and be ready to talk about it in class. Students often struggle with reading comprehension these days and might be unsure of where to begin. You can support students through scaffolding by doing things like previewing key vocabulary and terms they'll see in the text, providing an overview of the structure of the chapter, providing guiding questions to focus on what to pay attention to. And if you're teaching a course online, you might give students supervised practice with the tools they'll be used for the assignment, or even create a video to show them how to do it. There are many good examples of how you can scaffold assignments. Most of these are things like pre-writing, getting feedback, doing small writing assignments, doing research logs or annotated bibliographies, or reading or study guides. It is likely that you have used rubrics at some point in time for grading student work. Rubrics can be used for both formative and summative assessment. A rubric is a guide that articulates the expectations for an assignment and communicates the anticipated level of quality. Rubrics are usually used to score student performance on defined criteria and levels of quality or intellectual or skill development. They can create a consistent framework for measuring improvement across multiple assignments, and in this way, they can be used as formative assessment. Students can see their growth in certain areas and identify patterns in their strengths and challenges. Rubrics can be powerful tools if used correctly. I provide more notes on how rubrics can be used for formative and summative assessment in the PDF version of these slides in your module. Good practices for using rubrics. 4 main points. The first is to use student-friendly language. We often use language that fits our discipline and our way of approaching the work, but it may not be appropriate to the level of your course or your students. If you are using academic or disciplinary language, make sure you spend time teaching and practicing those concepts with students so they understand what you mean. Number 2, share the rubric with students. Share the rubric with the assignment prompt so that students are familiar with your expectations from the beginning. This should help students master your learning outcomes by guiding their work in the appropriate directions. Number 3, develop the rubric with your students. Students can monitor themselves and their peers using agreed upon criteria that they help develop. Have students apply your rubric to sample products before they create their own. The ability to evaluate, edit, and improve draft documents is an important skill. And number 4, use the rubric to actually grade the student work. Use the rubric to grade student work and return the rubric with the grades on it. Faculty can save time writing extensive comments by marking relevant segments of the rubric. Some instructors include a space for additional comments on the rubric either within each section or at the end. Now for our section on feedback. Effective feedback improves learning. Essentially, feedback is, quote, information given to students about their performance that guides future behavior, unquote. And when I say good feedback helps students learn, I want to emphasize the word good. Good feedback can provide direction for improvement, help students build their own internal standards, increase motivation, and encourage their own reflection. But good feedback is something we need to practice. Good practices for providing feedback to students include the following. Be clear and transparent about your expectations. Be specific about what you expect and what resources are available when students get stuck. Include clear grading policies, share rubrics or other grading frameworks when assigning the work. Give early and regular feedback. To be effective, students need to know what they are doing well, what they need to work on, and how they can improve. Provide feedback ahead of a final due date so students can use it to revise their work. Organize course assessment so that you can provide a course grade at midterm. Midterm is a good time to check in because there is still time for students to make changes. Help students do this by providing enough opportunities to build a solid grade. Instead of thinking of your task as grading student work, think of yourself as a coach. And as a coach, when you're providing feedback, your comments should be specific and actionable. So no more good job or needs work, but be direct and specific so they can learn from your feedback. Feedback should be forward focused. This means what should they do next, not just what went wrong. Feedback should be focused. Align your feedback with the goals of the assignment so that students don't see it and wonder, well, what does this mean or what does this have to do with my assignment? And feedback should be balanced. Point out the strengths and be constructive about growth areas. Giving and receiving feedback is not merely transactional, it's often emotional. It's important to be aware of the student's point of view and how they are experiencing your words, tone, and meaning. Being empathetic and providing feedback means that you show you understand students' perspective, you validate their experience, and that you genuinely care about their success. Empathy allows you to consider why a student might have approached an assignment in a particular way, and then helps you to provide careful and more targeted guidance and feedback. Students learn how you communicate with them. Empathetic feedback teaches them how to give constructive criticism with others. You're modeling how to balance honesty with kindness. Grading and feedback can cause a lot of stress and conflict for instructors and students alike. There are some common pitfalls to watch out for, and we offer some solutions to help you address some of these issues. Please see the notes provided on the slides PDF in your module for more information. Many faculty are starting to use generative AI tools to support their grading practices. Generative AI isn't relatively new, and we can use some of the tools, but we need to pay attention to the cautions. Generative AI can help you with your grading by improving your time management, providing consistency for student feedback, even providing some accessibility for multilingual support, or providing more and better feedback to larger numbers of students. But we need to pay attention to the cautions. Using generative AI can cause a loss of human connection and create mistrust between the student and faculty member. There can be a lack of nuanced understanding of the individual student context. There can be privacy and data concerns depending on the tools you choose. There can be a lot of problems with accuracy and reliability and difficulty with complex work. Module 2 addresses generative AI. Proceed with caution and do your homework. This slide gives you information on UDL guidelines we used in this module. You can get more information about these guidelines and read a lot more at udlguidelines.cast.org. Thank you. If you have questions or concerns, please reach out to Stephanie Foster or Denise Henry.